And they are a state-run operation, not by county or city. The program has in New Jersey 20 different regional operations. Each one is well funded. Matter of fact, the public defenders, because they get state monies, in contrast to the prosecutors who receive their money from the county, in a county like Essex County, which is very poor, the public defenders are better paid, better staffed, better housed than the prosecutors. It's one of the rare instances where they really are at an advantage. And actually the greatest advantage they have is the fact that they are stable and that they keep defenders there for years and years, and the majority of the office are career defenders. Remember I said 80% of the public defenders in Chicago left before 4 years? In New Jersey, 83% of the public defenders are there over 10 years. And they have a core group of about 40% who've been there over 20 years. So very few attorneys are there for 3 or 4 years. What happens is they don't get fired, but they just realize that, one, either they planned all along to just go for a couple of years and get some experience and then move to a corporate law firm as a litigation person, or they, excuse me, they are there for a couple of years and realize it's just not for them. You know, they don't really enjoy being in the criminal courts. They don't enjoy the fact that really what happens for public defenders, a very negative aspect of their job, is that they're, you know, it's guilt by association. They're defending criminals. They must be pretty scuzzy themselves. And nobody, you know, likes to be thought of by other lawyers and by the general public as, you know, as scuzzballs. And most public defenders in the public image have not a very positive reputation. And so they, you know, they can't even explain to their family and friends trying to justify their existence. And they just, they leave. But that's only a couple, because the office in Newark has a wonderful esprit de corps and camaraderie by having this stable team of career defenders. They're able to serve as mentors as the younger defenders come up. And they really have developed a system where every courtroom will have 2 defenders assigned to it. And these defenders, one is a senior defender, the other is a person with less than 10 years experience, and they really mentor one another. It's a terrific thing to see. I just remembered one final point of comparison between the reform system and the traditional system, and it's an important one to mention. And that is, and I'm going to wind up using a basketball analogy, the traditional system of public defense is organized horizontally, or it's like a zone defense. And instead of assigning a lawyer to a specific courtroom or a specific procedure, I mean, that's what they do. I'm sorry, I'm getting it backwards. In the traditional system, it's this horizontal system. So along the way, you get a whole series of different public defenders. When you are brought into the intake court, after you've been arrested, the next day or two, you appear before the judge, and you're going to learn what the charges are against you, and you'll have an opportunity to apply for a public defender. and you'll learn when your next court appearance is. You will have public defenders assigned to the intake to help you. Then when you come back in court for your pretrial hearing to determine if there's enough evidence to hold you and send you up to the felony court, to the serious court, because you start out, everybody starts out at the misdemeanor court. In New Jersey, it's the municipal court. So when you come back again for your pretrial hearing, you'll have a different attorney, because there'll be attorneys assigned to help you as a indigent defendant to help represent you at your pretrial hearing. Then after your pretrial hearing, when you now have your case bounced up to the grand jury to decide whether to indict you or not, there'll be a different attorney to represent you. They are specialists in grand jury. So they have you for a day. And then after the grand jury indicts you, which they do in 90-some% of the cases, you know, the old saying about the grand jury is led around by the prosecutor who's able to indict a ham sandwich if he feels like it. Because the grand jury just sort of rubber stamps whatever the prosecution wants. The grand jury only has to find that there's probable cause that you are guilty. That's their standard. When the case finally winds up in trial, then the standard is elevated to beyond a reasonable doubt. You have to be guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. But the standard to indict you is pretty damn low. Probable cause. Okay. And the thing is, if you're sitting as a grand juror, you say, well, to yourself, hell, even if I screw up, there's going to be a trial, and that'll correct whatever error we made. So it's not like we're giving out a final decree, anything bad's going to happen. Anything bad is they're going to be stuck in jail for another 6 months waiting their trial. And so you can see the power. And then after you are, the power of the prosecutor, rather. And then after you're indicted, in 2 weeks, a month, then you have your arraignment. A different attorney will be at your arraignment to stand next to you. And at your arraignment, all you, as a defendant, will have to do is say whether you plead guilty or not guilty. If you plead guilty, like through a plea bargain, that's great. That's the end. But most people don't. Almost everybody pleads not guilty because they can always plead guilty later on if they don't want to have a trial. If you do plead not guilty to trial. And of those 500, probably about 450 were handled by public defenders. Public defenders in Essex County, the figures are very similar across the country. About 90% of the cases in a big-time crime-ridden city are handled by public defenders. This is where justice happens, or injustice. And this idea of, I don't know what your idea may have been about all these cases going to trial, and no way. Very, very few trials. I'm sort of running, the last couple points I want to make are comments on why this Essex County system works so well.